the first thing to notice here is this yellow portal. And in this case, you have to avoid the yellow portal because otherwise you will be sent flying into the spikes above you. So you have to avoid it. It's an obstacle. However, one of the themes in this level that keeps showing up is that certain aspects and certain elements are reused at later points in the level, but in different ways. So this yellow portal will come into play later on. Nothing about it will change, nothing about the gameplay around it will change, but the circumstance that it's used will change, and it will become necessary to actually activate it at a later point in the level. One more thing to note is the speed portal right behind you changes as you pass, so it shifts down. And right here there's a lot to talk about. Firstly, there's some wave gameplay right above the player with a yellow portal that'll become relevant later on. So the blue orb, which the player has just tapped, is reused later on in the level. The pink orb right above the player is also used later on, not now. There is a blue portal that had to be actually avoided, similar to the yellow portal. In this case, it is also reused later on. Then there's a little path off to the right, which goes down, and there's a speed change in there. That is also used later in the level. You can't fit through there right now in the current speed. Notice the dual portal at the bottom. Right here you'll see an orb and a spider portal at the top. Those are not used now at all, they're used later. There's also a little corridor that goes straight down. That will make sense later. Now we are moving back through the duel section, but this time both of the duel players are UFO, except one is a small mini and one is normal. This causes them to be affected differently by gravity. That creates some very unique challenges in the gameplay. Here you actually have to release just before the cube portal, otherwise you die instantly. And then you can see that blue portal there being used, as well as this pink orb and blue orb. The blue portal over here is now reused, except this time we need to activate it in order to fall down, as opposed to having to avoid it. Now we finally return to the very start of the level. This time we're in the wave game mode, so we have to now navigate through the robot gameplay, but as a wave. And as it turns out, making gameplay that is difficult in two different game modes at the same time is kind of interesting, and it happens to work out in this case. Now we see that yellow portal, which was avoided at the start of the level, being required in order to make the next section easier, because there's another yellow portal in there. Also, we have hit the 2x speed portal, which is now being shifted down again, revealing the 1x speed portal, which will come into play yet again later in the level. This yellow portal doesn't do anything since we're already upside down from the previous yellow portal. That was the whole point. We now have to hit that blue portal again in order to make the next section possible. This section features some very difficult mini-cube gameplay, which is themed minimalistically, so there's not a whole lot of structure to it. Not a lot to say about this part except that it is very difficult. With this dash orb, we enter the vertical corridor and return to the duel section, this time from behind. We're now a ship and spider duel, similar to the wave and spider duel, but with some slight and noticeable differences in the gameplay. And here we enter through that duel portal, re-entering into the cube section, which we just came from, but this time as a ship, and we navigate backwards through it. The cube portal doesn't activate because we already activated it once. We fly up to the wave section. And this yellow portal does activate because it has multi-activate on. And then from there, we fly through the robot gameplay once again. Not as a robot, not as a wave, but this time as a ship, until we eventually make it to the very start. Watch out for more updates. I will try to make this a full-length level, and for that I'll also be looking for some decorators at some point in the future, because I'm sure decorating this will be a nightmare. So yeah, thanks for watching.